last week, there are secret things that belong to God, the Lord our God, that we do not know. These things are revealed, belong to us, unto us and to our children. The things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. There are things that God, His mercy and grace, have revealed unto us. There are other things that no man or woman, or perhaps even angels, can know. And we say that because obviously there's that passage that says the angels didn't know how God was going to bring salvation to mankind. They could see man in a mess, and they could see the justice of God required punishment, and basically they were saying, how's God going to do that? He's just going to wipe them all out, and then He allows His Son to die for them. And that must have been blowing their minds. What? You're going to go down there and die for them? Crazy. Okay? But we take it for granted. Paul said to Timothy, great is the mystery of godliness. There is a danger in the age in which we live that we bring everything down to a manageable level. Where we feel that we've got to have God in a box so that we can understand Him. We can define Him.
What version is that, Graham? What version is that?
That's the
I wouldn't have recognised
New
it.
Literal Translation.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Graham's.
It's a readable. It puts it into nice easy words. Okay.
Yeah.
We feel good. The translation is a fast line. Great is the mystery of godliness.
I know the quotation, but I don't recognise that.
But the rest of it
that
is
God
my
in
comment.
a box more puzzles me.
No, that's my comment.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No.
It's in yellow.
Oh, yeah, interspersed that way.
There is a quotation. Great in quotation marks. Great is the mystery of godliness.
I can't see that.
And then we make a comment on it. Okay. So everything in danger, we like everything. We like to understand everything. We like everything put in a box, so we can say, yes, I understand that, and then having understood it, we can stick it in a shelf and forget about it. That's usually our usual way of doing things.
Oh, I see.
So we want to be able to define God. We want to be able to speak about all these attributes and the person that are revealed unto us. But that's not always possible. Yet in depth we forget that the secret things belong to God, and there's a measure of mystery and paradox in God. And if we lose sight of the mystery, we'll just lose sight of God, because He is just so much greater than we are. Our understanding of God's greatness, His transcendence, how far He is above us, ought to help us to be a humble people. And it should inspire humility in us. There is no God like our God. Oh, that we could lift ourselves from the depths of our own human existence, our pitiful daily chores in life, the sphere of all our existence, and we can be pulled by His Spirit to see that God is transcendent, above everything, all powerful, all omniscient, all knowing, and in His glory understand He's on our side. He's rooting for us. He's there in every experience of our life. This powerful, transcendent being. It's a bit like, if you like, Star Wars, and you see what's the name of the big thing, big hairy beast? Chewbacca. You know, if you go into a bar with Chewbacca and he's right behind you, are you going to be scared? No way. God's on our side. He's bigger than Chewbacca. He's more powerful than Chewbacca. So whatever experience we go into in life, God is on our side. And that's an amazing concept. And it ought to give us not only humility, but also confidence. The irony of a study like this is, God is unknowable, and yet in our study, we're going to try and seek to try and know the unknowable God. So it's a paradox, okay? We're saying let's help each other to discover who God is. But before we can even get that far, one of the first things we know about God is He's unknowable. And yet we're going to at least catch a glimpse of the hem of His garment. We're going to see a little of His beauty. We're not going to have the experience of Isaiah. We're not going to be able to see that God in all His glory and look at the impact it had on Isaiah. He threw himself on his face. I am a man of unclean lips in the presence of the holiness of God. Moses by the burning bush. Take off your shoes. The very ground you're standing on is holy ground. Not because there's anything special about the ground, but because you're standing in the presence of God. Every Lord's Day when we come together to worship, we as a body are coming into the presence of God in a real way. And how Moses felt, how Isaiah felt, and how many of the people in the scriptures have felt. We should catch a glimpse of that. If we can just enough catch a glimpse of that, it'll make a difference in how we live. It'll give us confidence to know that He is with us and on our side. So, part of the problem is today that we seem to have lost some of that awe, some of the reverence of the unknown, the uniqueness of God. We think we've seen God in Christ, we've seen Him in His humanity, and sometimes we don't look above His humanity to see the awesomeness of the power. There's some part of this world, it's certainly at special times of night or special times of year, when you look up at space, the harvest moon. You've seen a real still night when the harvest moon almost, you could almost reach up and just touch it, and you're awesome, bound, and that's just a reflection of the sun. It's not even the light, its own light. It's just a reflection of the sun. In some parts of the world, if you watch some of these explorer programs, and you see them under a star-lit sky, and it's almost like this. You could again reach up and pluck the star that seems so close. We had an instance this last year where the moon was really close and big, and I got out my binoculars and looked at it, and you could see all the lumps and bumps and the dips and stuff, and it was amazing, you know. How far away is that? Absolutely mind-blowing. And that's just a lump of rock. God is more awesome than His creation. To be able to see God, really we should be awe-inspired. The secret things can no man know, that great glory of God that no man can see and live. The great person of God that no human mind can hold and sustain. One man said that today's society spells God with a small g and man with a capital M. Who do we see as the most important? Who do we magnify and lift up? You know, the scientist, the banker, the industrialist, you know, Obama. The power that men have, and we look up to these men, and they're nothing compared with God. And yet they almost claim to be as big as, more powerful as, than the God of worship.
Where do we put the words of Jesus then? This just occurred to me.
Yep.
This is life eternal, to know Thee, the only true God,
yes,
and Jesus Christ whom Thou hast sent.
Well,
so there must be a sense in which we can know God. He's not, I would say He's not unknowable, He's incomprehensible. That's another matter. I know You.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't comprehend You.
This is true.
No, well, I know, but the distinction I'm making is between knowing and comprehending. I know lots of things, but some things I don't comprehend. And I think it's like that with God.
Well, in context of what we said earlier, that's why I said it's irony. Yeah. And it's a paradox. We can know only what God has revealed.
What He reveals of Himself.
But the problem with that is He hasn't revealed everything about Himself. So even what we have to know about God is only touching a small aspect.
Yeah.
You know, His awesomeness, the power of God as Creator in a universe as big as ours. Yeah. That just blows your mind to think of somebody capable of doing that. I was watching I've got a little video on my computer the other day, and it was talking about viruses and stuff in the human body. And it was absolutely mind-blowing whether we're able to understand now how some of these things work. And it had in graphic, you know, the whole thing being shown in graphic, and you think, that's amazing. You've got all these battle things, taking on viruses and sorting the body out.
Some things we don't want to know.
No, but it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. Yeah. They're so, you know, you're talking about thousands of them, in some cases millions of them. and they've all got a plan, they've all got something built into them, a purpose, and to do things. And you think, who on earth would think of that? How could you put that together? It's absolutely mind-blowing. And then you look at the universe, and you've got the opposite extreme. Everything's in microcosm, and everything's in macrocosm. That's the right way, right? It's absolutely mind-blowing. That's all you can say. It's mind-blowing. And God in Christ says, "This is who I am." Have you seen me? Have you haven't seen the Father? You know, it's Jesus. Jesus is showing us God, His compassion, His mercy, His goodness, His wrath. But that's only a taste of who God really is. As much as God, Jesus Himself said when He was talking to His disciples, He says, "I would like to tell you lots of things, but you're not ready to take it in. You can't take it in." So He had to wait. He said, "The Holy Spirit will reveal to you the things that I couldn't tell you because you weren't ready for them." You know, even in that, even Jesus Himself walking with human beings, He says, "There's only a limited amount I can tell you because your minds are not ready for it. They can't take it in." My wife says I'm like that all the time. She talks to me. She says, "Where's it gone?" And what do you like that? You know, don't you understand? And yet we think we can come to terms with who God is, put him in a nice box, tie a ribbon around, and say, "I know God. I know everything about God." Rubbish. We'll never know everything, but at least we can try to learn something about Him, and that's what we are. So let us beware when contemplating and thinking about God that we don't strip Him of His mystery, of that which is God, His godliness.
We can never understand the mechanics of how and what He has done.
No.
It's
too
much.
We've used an electric light tonight. I'm using electric power from a computer. He's using electric power in his camera.
We don't know what.
But no, scientists don't know what electricity is.
No.
One of the big minds in our society at the moment, he says, you know, what do you think about how fast does electricity travel? To be able to switch it on there and go, toom, the light goes on. He says that what they've got so far, there's electricity bumbles along at the speed of syrup. You know, syrup just going down a slow trickle. And we're thinking, you know, switch that on, that's on. But it doesn't work that way. It actually bumbles along. So what you've seen is the bits falling off the edge, if you like. You know, the rest bumble along behind it. He says, we can't understand electricity, and yet we use it in every day. Our Christianity is something, hopefully, we use every day. But can we then say we understand who God is? What God is?
They can't make up their minds whether the power flows through the wire or over the wire.
No.
They don't really know.
They don't know. This is the best physics guys of our day. Electricity, it's in every Western home, and yet they don't know it. They can't understand it. Gravity.
You know it's there when you touch it.
That's right. I'll tell you. I remember being in I had a friend who was fixing something. It was a cooker. A cooker. That's power. That is.
Yeah.
He actually touched the wrong thing. 1 minute he was standing there, the next he was over on the other side of the room. It literally just whacked him off his feet. My brother-in-law, he actually got his heart, had to give up his job because it messed up his heart. He was a health and safety guy going around the factory, and he said, "Look, somebody's left these wires like a they shouldn't leave wires dangling."
I learned that the hard way when we came back from Holland. I brought a Miele, a German Miele machine with us, and I didn't realise it was wired differently, and trying to. I got a real shock.
Yeah. Anybody who's done that knows all about it.
Absolutely.
So, how do we describe God? What can we know and what can we know about God? What is God like? How do we define God? You know, somebody says, "Do you believe in God? What's He like?" Well, okay, we can begin to tell them something, but it's difficult to help people to understand who God, and that's why Jesus is there. Well, we need to, if we get to know Jesus better, we can understand much more about who God is, because He came to show us who God is. So that's our purpose in studying the God in these studies. It's our intention to understand God's divine revelation, the Word of God, how it reveals what He's really like, and the paradox is, God is not like anything that we can ever conceive of. So, we're going to read about Him, what He's revealed about Himself, but we'll never know exactly what God is really like. Isaiah said, "To whom or what shall you compare God?" God's not like anything that exists in this universe. In other words, there's nothing to be compared with who God is. So, in most situations, that's what you usually do. If you come into somebody and they say, what is a big book like? You can say, well, it's like this, because you can find something else to compare it with. Or how big is this window you're describing? And you can, well, it's about the size of a blackboard. So you can use something to know to reference something you don't know. Comparison. You can't do that with God. Well, God's like, nothing you can understand. Okay. Anyway. It's amazing to think the lengths that God has gone to that we might understand Him in some small way. We could say He even has stripped Himself of some of that mystery in order that He might communicate to a natural world who He is and what He is like. That's why within the Word of God He incorporates many like words. To say that God is like such and such, to describe Himself by comparing Himself to another thing, although He can never exactly be like that thing. For example, in Ezekiel chapter 1, the whole chapter is describing God, but it uses like terms. God is like. So here's Ezekiel, he sees something, and he said, and you know, what do you see in Ezekiel? Well, it's like, it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God, he says. Ezekiel saw what no language could describe, and the point of what he's saying is this: he had no reference point. He had nothing else around him he could say, this is what he's like. He had nothing to compare God with. He says, I saw visions of God. He had nothing to interpret. There was no language that could describe the visions of God he was seeing. He saw something different from what he'd ever known in his whole existence. So he does. So what he does is he uses like words. He uses comparisons. He says, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of lamps. He didn't see burning coals of fire. He didn't see lamps. He saw something that could only be described as like them. And that's the best he could do. So it carries on. As I read down the passage, the nearer he comes to the throne of God, the bigger problem he's got. The less definite his words become, the less specific, the less accurate they are. Verse 26, for example, says, above the firmament that was over the head was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne, and the likeness as the appearance of a man upon it, I saw the colour of amber, as the appearance of fire round about it, with the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downwards. He says, I don't know don't call me crazy, I'm not drunk, okay, I'm doing the best I can, lads. Basically, that's all he can do, because he is seeing something that is beyond language description. I saw with the appearance of fire had brightness round about it, as the appearance of a bow that is in the cloud in the day of the rain. So he says, it's like the rainbow, as the appearance of brightness around him, the brightness like the sun, and the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. So he's trying to describe what he sees, but he's really struggling for words. He couldn't see the glory of God and live, so he had to convey to him the likeness, the appearance of the glory of God. So God had to show Ezekiel a controlled something, because if God showed Ezekiel everything, Ezekiel would have been blown away. So there's two things going on here. Here's Ezekiel trying to describe what he sees, and he's got no words to describe it, and God's trying to help him understand something about who he is, but he knows he can't show him his glory, otherwise he'd kill him. So God is trying to make a bridge between him and man. And Ezekiel is trying to take what God is doing and make it so that we can understand it, the readers in later time. And he said, do you see what a glorious God we have? A light inaccessible, hid from our eyes. I put a new light in my bedroom the other night, and the first time it switched on, Susan was doing, God, that's bright, she says, that's really bright. She couldn't look into it because it's too bright. That's fine with me.
Shouldn't you be looking into it?
Well, that's exactly what I said. It's meant look down, you can see all, you can see everything. You don't need to look up. But that's
look into the sun, do you?
Look into the glory of God. It's like that. You can't look into God's glory. It just blows your mind. So we are so inadequate that God has to describe himself in likeness, in appearance, the language of as it were. God can't put it into our pitiful language. It can't be contained by our puny minds. We need to beware in all our doctrines that we take from the Word of God that we do not ever try to define the indefinable. We need to beware, especially in contemplating God, that we don't misunderstand. The Bible says God is like feathers. It's the eagle's wings. I'm trying to remember the passage that talks about it. But it was an idea when he's talking about comfort. There's other passages.
It's not Jerusalem,
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
Thou trust, one of the passages, yeah.
Yeah. And Jerusalem, Jerusalem, when Jesus is trying to say, I would rather gather you like a hen with the
brood.
young brood under my wings. Yeah. So God uses, those terms are called anthropomorphisms. And that means that he's speaking in language that we can understand to describe, to try and make that description. In the Moses, with the Ten Commandments, the finger writ. In Daniel, the finger writing on the wall. Doesn't God need a finger? You know, he's probably used laser.
No, the Spirit is. Jesus says that.
Yeah.
Jesus said that when he's discussing the miracle he performed, he says in Matthew's account it's the Spirit of God. In Luke's account it's the finger of God. Yeah. If I by the finger of God cast out demons, if I by the Spirit of God cast out demons. Interesting.
He's trying to make things understandable.
That's right, yeah.
When he was talking to Nicodemus, he says, so too is it with the Spirit.
Yeah.
You don't know which way the wind comes.
The wind blows where
and the wind
it
blows where it pleases.
Sound, but
so he's trying to describe the indefinable.
But that passage, it should be one of your favourite passages in Romans. The invisible things of him are clearly seen in the things that are made.
Yes.
So that there are things about God, God's nature, that are revealed in his creation. That's it.
Well, to my mind, obviously, the first thing that kind of springs to mind is God is a great architect.
Yeah.
And God is a great mathematician.
Yeah.
God is a great engineer. You know, that's just talking human terms. But to be able to do the things that he's, God's a great inventor. Yeah. God's got a sense of humour. He made me. You know, the thing that God is described in things that are horrendous. That's true. So we can catch a glimpse of some of that. We need to be aware and contemplate God that we never ever put him into our conception. Never really say, yes, now I understand everything about him. As we tend everything else in life, we don't want to reduce God to manageable terms, to our manageable terms. A guy called A.W. Tozer said, the God of contemporary Christianity is only slightly superior to the gods of Greece and Rome, if indeed he is not actually, in some ways, inferior to them, in that sometimes he seems weak and helpless, while the gods of Rome and Greece were at least powerful and seen in battle and fighting almost, you know, if you read some of the Greek mythologies, Paris and all that guys, or Neptune and these people with their coming out and doing battle and stuff, they've got power. Whereas our God, sometimes we portray our God, gentle Jesus, meek and mild. You know, that's a lot of people's picture of God. What's God like? Well, it's like, you know, he's the major, isn't he? And that's where he stays in the life and in the minds. We've robbed God of his greatness, of his awesomeness, of his reverence, of his power. What have we reduced God to? The great, transcendent, superior, the secret things that belong to him. We've tried to bring him down and strip him of all his power, of all his sovereignty, of all his dignity. And we have made ourselves, ultimately, God over him. We need to recognize we don't worship the Bible. We worship the God of the Bible. Sometimes that's about as far as we get. He is greater than what the Bible depicts. He is greater than any language. He's greater than any visions. He's greater than any concept imaginable. Any thought that can enter into our heart or our mind of any child of God. God is bigger than you can imagine. Idolatry is when we move from what God is said to be like to begin to imagine him in some way, so we can begin to define him. And that's why some people, you know, you talked a long time ago about some people's concept of God is a big tapioca pudding in the sky, you know. Some people's view of God is somebody who way long ago started everything off and then he pushed off and left us to our own devices. Some people's view of God is sitting on a throne, maybe even God playing a harp. You know, we try to reduce God into irreducible. For instance, we read there is an appearance of burning coals. We read that God appeared unto them like a form of a man, that we might make him into a man. And having made him into a man, we can then control him. But that's not what the Word of God says. It's like the appearance, like the thing, as it were. And that's why we reject idols and idolatry. Because whatever image we make of God, then it reduces God to that form. How many kids in this country, maybe not so much now because of atheism, but at one time grew up with a picture of Jesus being blue-eyed and long hair and wandering around Jerusalem?
Maybe it wasn't like that, Graham.
Well, if God is genuinely English, then he might have been, you see. But in reality, Hebrews are always brown eyes.
Yeah. And dark skin too.
Dark skin.
Dark skin.
Sometimes, you know. But we get a concept of God from pictures, from Bible storybooks, you know, and that sticks in our mind. And it's good because we now know what God's like.
The fisherman on the Sea of Galilee are as brown as you could imagine.
Yeah.
Really.
And Malcolm X, the guy who was involved in the black movement in America, one of the reasons why he rejected Jesus is because he's the white man's God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus is a white man.
Yeah.
And yet you've seen, I've seen some pictures of Jesus hanging on the cross.
Right.
He's Chinese because it's for a Chinese audience.
That's right.
He's black for an African audience, and he's white for us. The picture we have defines them and traps them into that focus.
And I take issue with that. There's a God-shaped space in everybody's heart. I don't think so.
Because God's bigger than every
bigger
star.
than that, that's right. Well, yeah. We know what it means anyway.
Yes, we understand
but it's
what they're trying to say. But we feel a vacuum. No? Okay. There's something in there? No? Okay. So, in our idolatry, you know, we can so easily contain God, or try to contain God. You know, Nicholas of Cusa, in his book, The Vision of God, prays this prayer. He addresses him, this is what he says: if anyone should set forth any concept by which God can be conceived, I know that concept is not the concept of you. He says that nobody can really picture who God is. And if they claim to, you can guarantee it's wrong. Because it's going to be limited. Won't put God in a box. Do you understand that if any man or woman or book or picture tries to depict God, it is other than the God who is, because God cannot be broken down to language, into picture. Maybe if you look through the book.
Do you remember Pauline ever coming home from Sunday school? I remember this, it stuck in my mind. They must have been talking about God in the Sunday school. What is God like? And Pauline said, Jesus like that.
Uh-huh. That's right. Yeah. Well, that's the best we can do.
That's right.
Because
that is the falling.
There's the mercy and grace of God.
Yeah.
As seen in Jesus. I, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me.
That's right.
But a lot of people, again, forget that Jesus came down off the cross.
Yeah.
That Jesus rose from the grave.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, we sometimes we're guilty.
Blame Hollywood for that.
Well, even we do it on a Sunday morning because we're reflecting on the sacrifice of Jesus. And the sadness and the implications of that. We forget that sadness is balanced by joy. Our coming together on Sunday morning ought to be a joyous occasion, because yes, He died for us, but He's risen. We worship the risen Christ. And so even as we try to rightly understand different elements, if we get too trapped into one aspect of that element, then it's lopsided. We need to see we need to be balanced people, and we need to see the picture, the big picture that God has given us. And J.B. Phillips wrote in his book, "Your God is too small. Whatever you think of God," he says, He's bigger than we can imagine. Your God is too small. But having said that, if we can lift up our eyes and catch a vision of God, and a greater vision than maybe we had last week or the week before, then surely we're getting a little bit closer to understanding the reverence and awe and humility that we ought to have as His people, as His followers.
The reference referring to in Genesis, we were made in God's image.
Yes. That's not physical.
No.
I mean, God probably didn't, wasn't as rounded a character as me. That's talking about our ability to love, our ability to compassion, our ability for mercy, for forgiveness, our emotional attributes.
Rational attributes.
The difference is, in God, they're all perfectly balanced.
Yes.
His love and His wrath are perfectly balanced.
We're lopsided, right?
Often that's really the way we are. Sometimes in our anger, especially when you're a parent dealing with kids, sometimes instead of waiting till we calm down and then deal with the situation, we just lash out. They annoy you, and you grit your teeth. And then they just push that fraction too far, and you just turn around and marmalise them. And that's not really the ideal. But God doesn't do that. When He was thinking of the sin of the Amorites, and He's talking to in Genesis, He says, 400 years' time, they're going to really annoy me, and I'm going to use you to put them under control. The Assyrians, 800 years' time, they're going to really annoy me. I'm going to use you to put them under control. The Babylonians. So God's picture, God's timeline, God's reaction to something is not definitely our reaction. God can calmly look at the whole situation and say, I'm going to step in here, I'm going to step in here, and I'm going to step in here.
Consider the goodness and the severity of God.
Goodness and severity. And that's one of the things. We'll come to it again later on, because obviously we're going to look at some of the different attributes of God. And this is only the first one. The real key, sometimes we see injustice in the world. Sometimes we see bad things happen to good people. Sometimes we see good things happen to bad people. It really winds us up. But at the end of the day, that phrase should come out. Surely the God of the universe will do right.
The God of all the earth, right.
Whatever His decisions are, whatever bleak or however twisted looks to us, the reality is that He stands outside of us, and in that His justice is true justice. And it will be the right conclusion. Somebody says, "Well, my grandmother, she didn't become a Christian. What's going to happen to her?" Well, whatever will happen to her, God will make the right decision.
Shall not the God of all the earth do? Abraham's words.
That's what. So that's a powerful thing at the back we need to keep in mind. That though we may never understand things, when we totally misunderstand things, God never misunderstands. And whatever injustice is in any situation, it will always be the right thing, for the right reason, at the right time. And that gives us the strength. There are sometimes, like Habakkuk, we're turning around and saying, God, when are you going to do something? Of course, when he did, God says, I am doing something. Look at them. And Habakkuk says, you can't use them. Yeah. Okay. God basically says, sit back and watch. You know, it's beautiful, powerful,
right,
amazing.
If I ever get to heaven, will Ravi Shankar be there?
You never know. That you need to leave that in God's hands.
Oh yeah, I've got to.
Isn't he?
It's a valid point, isn't it?
Isn't he really going to be thankful that it's not you making decisions?
No,
Didn't Hosea say, why don't you do something?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and he goes, I'm going to do something to make your hair stand on end.
That's right.
I'm going to send to the Babylonians.
Yeah. So, but that gives peace to us, and it's a glimpse of who God is. So we'll stop there. So draw a picture of God if you like. Make a statue of God if you like. Have a picture in your mind of who God is and what your God looks like. But at the end of the day, when we behold the glory of God, perhaps even then we're not able to look at His greatness. We will know that all of our concepts, all of our puny thoughts, all the ways in which we have stripped Him down, reduced Him, and brought Him into our understanding, dequalifying Him to everything that we can understand, we will then see how far short of understanding who He was, who He were. Like we said the other day about the girl who took was blind, being able to see. When we get to heaven, we're going to say to Jesus, you didn't tell us it was going to be like this. You know, wow. And, you know, no matter what we think, that's something to look forward to. Okay, Frank, lead us in a word of prayer.